Welcome to the Jotun webinar. This is concerned, well, the webinar title is Bulk Carriers, Internal Coatings of the Cargo Holds, Key Issues and Successfully Navigating Them. The webinar is designed to help on the subject of applying, repairing and maintaining cargo hold coatings, especially on bulk carriers. Just to introduce myself, my name is Alan Thorpe, and I will be acting as moderator for this webinar. I am editor of the bi-monthly publication SORJ, Ship Offshore Repair Journal, and the weekly email publication SRN, Ship Repair Newsletter. Just to talk about the webinar, the duration of this webinar is 1 hour maximum for all the presentations, followed by 1 hour available for questions from all attendees in an open forum. Now we're down to 3 panelists at the moment. We've got Sam Chambers, who works for Jotun. We've got Mark Oliver Whitberg, who works for Wilhelmsen Ship Services in Oslo. And we've got Michael Armott, who comes from the Safinah group. Unfortunately, we also had a representative from Greece's Maran Dry Bulk Carriers, which is part of the Angelakousis group and one of the largest ship owners throughout the world, on the panel. However, due to the passing of the group's founder and chairman, John Angelakousis, only last Saturday, Maran decided to cancel this participation. So we're going to get started with the presentations. Now, the first one is from Sam Chambers of Jotun. Sam, he's the regional marine director, Western Europe at Jotun. Sam has been working in the marine paint industry for the last 15 years after graduating from the University of Newcastle with a bachelor's degree in chemistry in 2005. Sam currently holds the position of Regional Marine Director for Western Europe. His responsibilities revolve around the marine sales activities in Western Europe and supporting the sales teams in Jotun's 9 companies in the region, including Greece, UK and Germany, 3 of the top 10 ship-owning nations globally. The Jotun Group is recognised, based in Norway, the Jotun Group is recognised as a leading manufacturer of marine paints, coatings and powder coatings, and is represented in over 100 countries throughout the world. Within the shipping segment, Jotun is a market leader in high-performance hull coatings, as well as high-quality coatings for cargo tanks and cargo holds. Jotun's ambition is to offer customers solutions that gives them a competitive edge by developing products that help owners and ship managers improve fuel efficiency, extend periods between dry dockings and maintenance, or lower emissions. Okay, over to you, Sam.
Thank you very much indeed, Alan. Good morning, everybody, and good afternoon. And on behalf of Jotun, thank you all very much for joining us today. Just like to also pass on our condolences to the Angelakousis family and the organisation involved there at the sad passing of Mr. Angelakousis. We wish them all the best. Alan, thank you very much for your very kind introduction. As Alan said, Jotun do produce a very wide range of coating solutions. And today, given the time we have available, we will be giving a whistle-stop tour of specialized cargo hold coatings and how we believe that they can help to maximize cargo flexibility and reduce maintenance cost and downtime. So Alan kindly introduced the Jotun organization too. So only a very brief recap from me on that to say that Jotun are indeed a major coating supplier. We operate in many of the coatings markets, having the #1 position in the marine coatings market globally, which represents around 26% of the Jotun Group's turnover. A large portion of this coming from new building activity in Northeast Asia, and roughly 20% of that turnover coming from our Western Europe markets, which is where we're presenting to you from today. So today we'd like to specifically talk about key challenges facing cargo holds with respect to coatings and explore the benefits of investing in specialist protective coatings. So firstly, I'd like to try to frame the main factors which can affect cargo hold coatings and the implications of those issues. You're probably all familiar with these, but just to set the scene. So the key role of a cargo hold coating is to preserve the steel condition, steel replacement being a very costly procedure, which is mostly wanted to be avoided, and the procedure costs a lot of money, basically. So certainly something we want to avoid, and there are certain issues that can compromise the steel preservation, and the cargo hold coatings are designed to try to do so. But starting with probably the most obvious cause of damages, that being caused by cargo operations, loading of cargoes at very high speed, which can cause scratching and impact damages, and settlement, which when the cargoes tend to settle in the hold, they can scratch the sides and gouge the sides of the coating. But then also the scraping and gouging from discharge operations using heavy grabs and machinery. So secondly, corrosion is a challenge which not only comes as a result of the damages just mentioned and the potential for underfilm creep around those damaged areas, but also corrosion can come from the carriage of corrosive cargoes, such as salts in fertilizers, but also from prolonged, very hot, humid, aggressive cargo hold environment as a result of trading with certain cargoes. And then last but not least, contaminations by way of cargo residues and staining left on the coating film, which is not only unsightly, but also considered unclean and potentially can exacerbate the corrosive environment and corrosion too. So the main implications of these challenges then can become excessive cleaning required, or excessive maintenance regimes being needed, and ultimately can lead to premature refurbishment being needed, meaning having to take the vessel off hire into dry dock alongside, all of which mean the vessel is not earning money, which is what they're designed to do, and in worst case could lead to the need for steel replacement, which as I mentioned is a very costly procedure. So you might have guessed, of course, the recommendation of coating companies is to invest then instead of in standard universal epoxies in the cargo holds to use specialized cargo hold coatings, which we will try to show in this short presentation how for a small upfront investment can help to improve cargo flexibility and reduce maintenance requirements and cost, and ultimately preserve the steel longer. So more specifically then, what do we mean when we talk about cargo hold coatings developed for cargo flexibility when it comes to bulk carriers? Well, if you as an operator want the flexibility to carry a broad range of cargo, you will of course need a coating that can cater for all of the necessary conditions. For example, it needs to be able to withstand high levels of chemical, thermal, and seawater resistance, particularly in the ballast holds if one is being used. It will need to be strong enough to handle the tough cargoes, the hard cargoes, withstanding the gouging and scratching and scraping coming from the cargo operations, but also be possible to be clean enough to carry the sensitive cargoes. And talking about sensitive cargoes, obviously the coating itself then will need to have the necessary approvals for different cargoes, for example, FDA compliance certification when it comes to grains and foodstuffs being carried. Furthermore, the coating itself must be able to offer a quick turnaround time for back-to-back cargoes with respect to being easy to clean and if necessary to repair the minor areas that need to be done so. So all of these things, it's quite a lot to ask from a coating, and very much so if you talk about standard universal epoxies, but this is a much more manageable process with more advanced specialist cargo hold coatings. So whereas flexibility, cargo flexibility refers primarily to operations and to the operational expenditure or OPEX of a vessel, The key impact of a highly durable coating comes more in reference to CapEx, or capital expenditure, where investing in specialist cargo hold coatings can reduce the need for major refurbishment by up to 7 years. And that's highlighted here by the blue bars representing times when you would need to do a full recoating, a major refurbishment of the cargo hold coating. Thus meaning that with the top of the range coatings, as you can see here, they have the ability to last for a full 2 special surveys in between 2 dry dockings, and sometimes versus a standard epoxy, a universal epoxy, which might only last 3 years, depending on cargo cycling, etc., and trade, for a cargo hold coating of that type. Which obviously has a big implication then on the amount of maintenance that you need to do, the amount of downtime, and ultimately the cost that you incur accordingly. So moving on then, we recognise that there are many factors to consider in choosing the optimal cargo hold coating. We've mentioned but a few. I mean, others include the time that you have available to physically do the work that's required, the budget that's available, what the future trade and cargoes of the vessel will be, and of course the vessel age, and that will ultimately affect how much you want to invest as well. Unfortunately, we cannot drill it down into all of these implications or criteria in today's meeting, but this is something that we would encourage you to discuss further with Jotun or your coating supplier. For the sake of today, we will continue to focus on the 2 key areas that we've mentioned, which are the cargo flexibility and the durability, and hope that we can show you the impact of the cargo hold selection in terms of dollars and cents. And the benefit that you can get from those. So here then we have some real life examples of specialized cargo hold coatings and the benefits that they can have. We'll look at some visual examples, and then we'll try and tie that up with some dollars and cents benefits. And here we can see we're looking at a vessel which has traded for 3 years using what is an entry-level specialist cargo hold coating. The trade has predominantly been carrying iron ore, which, as you would know, is quite a hard cargo. And yet you can see that the coating is still in very good condition after 3 years, with around 2% rust and scratching, meaning that at this intermediate docking after 3 years, only minor repair is needed, versus what we would expect to be a much larger refurbishment being needed for a standard universal epoxy. And therefore, minor repair being needed at this stage, meaning that the vessel can go back into service very quickly after minor repairs and low cost, and keep going with that same cargo hold coating until the special survey, when perhaps some more significant refurbishment might be needed. So moving up the scale, the result you can see here is for a Handymax bulk carrier, which has predominantly been trading with coal and bauxite, to which the coatings have stood up fantastically well after 5 years in service this time. So the result being less than 7% rusting and less than 5% scratching. Certainly not needing any major refurbishment at this stage, probably for another few years at least. And with this level of cargo hold coating, we would expect that they could probably make it to the next intermediate docking, so around about 7.5 years, before any significant refurbishment is needed. So again, just adding to that through life cost saving of going up the ladder in terms of the coating technology and performance. Finally then, looking at a top of the range pure epoxy type product, something with very high tensile strength and scratch resistance. You can see it's exhibiting no corrosion creep from the small areas where there are minor damages, and the results have been less than 8% in total rusting. After what's been an extremely demanding cargo trade, you can see the cargoes listed here, and there are very hard, very high impact cargoes, but there's also the high sensitivity cargoes, the foodstuffs and such. And here we can see that there's no major issues being presented throughout the trade or the operations after 5 years in service. So here again, we would expect at this special survey docking to just do minor repairs of this coating again, and that coating we would expect to last at least another 5 years again. So an additional extension in terms of the interval between maintenance for these very specialized cargo hold coatings from 0 to 10 years, which is a good result and can significantly reduce the maintenance costs. So in summary, and to put some dollars and cents to this, here we can show that for a very small initial coating investment, which is shown here on the right-hand side of the slide, approximately $30,000 addition from 210,000 versus 180,000 for the refurbishment of a Handymax bulk carrier, you can have a 7-figure return of investment, or roughly a 45% saving on your cargo hold cleaning and operations and coating, taking into account the cost of the coating itself, the cleaning that you'll do throughout the operational period, the repairs that might be necessary, and the major refurbishments. So this is all versus a standard universal epoxy, which can typically be applied in the outline spec of a new build bulk carrier, for example. So we believe with this 7-figure return on investment and a 45% saving, this consideration, this investment into specialized cargo hold coatings really makes a very sound business case. Yes, albeit brief, I hope that this has been of interest to all of you. Apologies we don't have more time to drill down into this, but we would welcome any questions that you might have, or indeed the opportunity to explore this further with you in more detail after the event. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the webinar.
Okay, thanks, Sam. That was very interesting. Okay, number 2 presentation is from Norway's Wilhelmsen Ship Services. Mark Oliver Whitberg, he's the global project manager for the cargo hold cleaning solutions at WSS, with a background as diploma engineer and deck officer, and now 10 years in WSS. Mark has been a specialist on cleaning chemicals and equipment. He brings several years' experience of product development and market insights from the maritime industry. WSS is one of the biggest maritime networks in the world. Their products have the ability to deliver to more than 2,000 ports in 125 countries on a worldwide basis. Supplying market-leading marine solutions, including Unitor products, who they took over a few years ago, Tim Ropes, Unicool refrigerants, and Unitor and Nalfleet marine chemicals. Last year, WWS made product delivery to 27,500 vessels. Quite an impressive figure. Okay, Mark, it's all yours now.
Thanks, Alan, for the nice introduction, and also thanks to all participants attending actually this webinar. Perfect. So today we like to actually focus more on the cleaning of the cargo holds. Here we like to capture actually the 4 points. It's staying compliant. What does it really take to stay compliant when cleaning the cargo holds? It's actually the keeping safe work practice, but then also when it comes to cleaning the holds, what is the best practice on doing it, but also then maintaining clean holds, which is a key actually in order to achieve the results you want to achieve. So when it comes to the regulation, it's actually MARPOL Annex 5 that is kicking in and regulating the wash water when cargo holds are cleaned, because the cargo residues nor the cleaning agents that are used for cargo cleaning can be harmful to the marine environment. Otherwise, if they are harmful, they must be given actually to shore reception facilities and cannot be discharged into the sea. And that's important to keep in mind, because the cargo residues you can see on the safety data sheet of the cargo if it's harmful, but the cleaning agents you also need to check either on the product label or on the safety data sheet on the products that are in use. If they, for instance, carry a dead tree and dead fish symbol, then they are noted actually as harmful to the marine environment, and then they cannot be discharged along with the wash water to the sea. In addition, what is a common base chemicals that are used for cleaning, or what we see here and then is actually sodium hypochlorite, or used or known as bleach, and that is actually a known harmful to the marine environment substance. And if this is used for cargo hold cleaning, then the cargo residue wash water actually needs to be discharged to shore reception facilities and cannot be discharged into the sea. Other harsh chemicals like muriatic acid without any inhibitors, or hydrochloric acids, can actually damage the coating. And as soon as the coating is damaged, the cleaning cycle gets more and more difficult, because the contaminants easily stick to the surface inside the coating, and then it goes into the open pores, and it will be very difficult to clean them off. Keeping a safe work practice is something that is very important. And of course, if the crew is not having the right equipment and tools to clean the holes, then it can happen that they get inventive, and then we have pictures like we can see here on the slide, what no one wants to see. And that's why it's important actually to keep the right equipment on board and the right tools that the crew needs in order to avoid any fatal consequences that may occur during not keeping safe work practice. So when it comes to cleaning of the hold, you need the right chemicals. We need actually the right equipment in place. And also the crew needs to be familiarized with the cleaning process and the usage of the equipment or the chemicals. A best practice is actually to test out the chemicals on small spots first, checking out the right dilution that is needed in order to clean off the stains and the cargo residues from the surface. And here we always need to keep in mind the normal cleaning circle that always applies, and that you can see here on the bottom. It is actually 4 main factors that are kicking in for getting the right cleaning results. It's temperature, it's the workforce, it's the time, and the cleaning media or agent that you're using. And if there's not a possibility to increase the wash temperature of the water, for instance, when cleaning the holes, or to use the force in elevated areas, then it's either time or chemicals that need to be increased in order to get the cargo hold properly cleaned and pass the hold inspections. What we see often in holds, or quite often actually, are coatings that were damaged over time, or contaminated, not cleaned, or even overcoated by patch-up works with paint, where the surface has not been properly prepared. And if you see that on the lower picture, actually, where you have a patch-up on paint on a surface that has not been properly prepared, the coating will not actually adhere to the surface, so it will peel off after a while, and then the doom loop starts over again, because the stains are getting uncovered, and you end up at the beginning where you started. So it's important before cargo is taken in, a dirty cargo, that the holes you start with are cleaned and in proper shape. Otherwise, the cleaning will be very difficult when discharging the dirty cargo and taking on the next cleaned cargo. It will be a challenge actually to get rid of old contaminated stains that has been accumulated over time. So what we recommend, and we always recommend, is actually to do a frequent cleaning after each discharge of the cargo. And that is one of the key priorities that should be taken, because if you load dirty cargo on top of dirty cargo, we hear here and then actually comments that then we don't need to clean because we load a cold cargo on top of a cold cargo that has been there from the previous voyage. But that is actually not true, because if you clean after each cargo discharge and you keep your holes maintained, then it will be also easier to switch from a dirty to a clean cargo going forward. So it's important to avoid any stains accumulating in the corners or on the surfaces, and to clean them off as much as you can between the cargo sequence. We at Wilhelmsen, actually, we produce all our Unitalk chemicals in Norway, close actually to Jotun's manufacturing plant. So everything is manufactured actually per latest ISO standards from one single production place. So we know exactly actually what chemicals we sell around the globe. And it's important also to keep the quality and performance on the products we sell, and have a total control actually on what is in our chemical drums. Our latest products that we have newly launched last year is actually Cargo Barrier HD and Cargo Clean HD. Here, Cargo Barrier HD is a water-resistant temporary coating that goes on top of the hold coating and acts as a barrier between the coating and the cargo. So that will help if you have a corrosive cargo, but it also helps actually for the cleaning afterwards, because then if you use Cargo Clean HD in a 10% dilution, you can easily remove the cargo barrier coating, including the contaminants that stick on top of the coating. And to show you an example how this could look like, we must imagine now we have an epoxy steel plate. Then we cover actually the lower part, we apply Cargo Barrier HD, and on the upper part we don't. And then we used graphite powder because it's very fine, it goes into the coating pores, and we rubbed it onto the surface. Then you use Cargo Clean HD in 10% and you apply it on the steel plate, and then you let it wait and soak for a couple of minutes. And we can see already on the lower part that the cargo barrier temporary film is dissolving and taking the stains and contaminants with it. Then when we do the final rinse by fresh water, we can see that actually the lower part is taking off the cargo barrier film, but it's also taking off the contaminants on the surface. To see this on a larger scale, we can now see pictures from a customer that has used actually Cargo Clean HD on coal stains. And we can see that they got a very nice results on the cleaning task afterwards, but we can also see that the coating is intact and in condition. So then you can also have these kind of results when performing the cargo cleaning. But to sum up, it is important also to keep in mind that it's not only the pure product or equipment that is supplied is most important is actually that you get the right support with the products. It's either technical advisory or support remotely, or what is even more in demand, and we see an increase in demand for this, is actually having, for instance, our port service engineers that are able to go on board the vessel and go together through our equipment and chemicals with the crew, train them at scene, and teach them actually what is the best practice for these chemicals and usage. And that is something that we see it's more and more in demand in order to match actually all the expectations when the crew performs the cargo cleaning. Perfect, thanks. Then I would hand over back to Alan.
Okay, thanks very much, Jan. That was excellent. The cleaning side of it is so important because it's while the ship is in operation, more so than applying at new building or at dry docking stage. The actual when the ship is in operation, that is one of the main things that keeps it going. Our third presentation is from the Safinah Group. Now, Michael Arnott, he's the Director of Technical and he's the Section Head of Chemicals, Energy and Infrastructure at the Safinah Group. Michael has more than 27 years of experience in the marine, protective and industrial coatings industry, whilst working for major international coating companies. And he also has 5 years experience from academic research on surface chemistry and corrosion. He has specialist knowledge of marine and protective epoxy coatings for hull, cargo hold, cargo tanks, infrastructure, surface technology, protection, corrosion, and has written more than 30 papers on the subject. Now, Safinah Group is a world-leading independent coating expert and consultant to the marine energy and infrastructure markets, as well as the yacht market. Safinah provides coating advice, inspections, failure investigations, review of coating specifications, insurance, and legal expert witnesses to the services. So it's over to you, Michael. Yeah, good luck.
Okay, thank you, Alan, for the nice introduction. I'm going to be talking about cargo hold coatings and failures and so on. So what can go wrong and what do we see with regards to that? The outline of my presentation, what to keep in mind and why does paint fail. Cargo hold coatings, I mean the exposure climate and typical failures, and then also the failures that Safinah has seen in various cases that we had and the reason why we have these failures. I'll show some photographs of different failure investigations, and then I'll wrap up with a conclusion. Just keep in mind that coatings are semi-fabricates and only work as specified if all surfaces are correctly designed and pre-treated prior to coating work commence, and that coatings are correctly specified for the conditions that it's supposed to be and applied to all surfaces, and that the coating is correctly dried in accordance with paint makers' technical data sheets and application instructions. So keep all that in mind, and it will not look as nice as the picture below if this is not followed. And if you look at why does paint in general fail, this is the likely reality. This is based on Safinah's 22 years of collected failure data. It might be surprising to you, but actually the biggest failure is actually design. Edges and corners and so on hasn't been rounded, so you get a lot of corrosion in those areas. And the second biggest reason for paint failure is a failure during operation, and then third is specification and selection of the coating. So it's very important to select the right coating to give the protection under the operational and climatic conditions you're operating. It might be also very surprising to you that process, which is then surface pretreatment and paint application, has less impact on when it comes to paint failures. It's about 7%. The exposure climate in a cargo hold is very tough on coatings. I mean, you have, as already mentioned by the earlier panelists, you have high mechanical exposure. You have exposure to chemical active cargoes, you have high temperatures, humidity, seawater, salts, and of course, exposure to oxygen. All of this creating both mechanical damages and corrosion. So in other words, the coating in a cargo hold should protect against impact, abrasion, humidity, heat, and prevent chemical and cathodic reactions. And below you can see some curves where you have plotted corrosion rate as a function of pH, temperature, and salinity. So at low pH, you can see that corrosion rate is increasing a lot in acidic conditions, as you can have if you, for instance, carrying coal and you have humidity in your cargo, you get sulfuric acid created in the hole, and you will get these low pH conditions. Temperature is has a big impact here, and it falls off around 80 degrees C. So if you have carrying a warm cargo, of course, you will have more corrosion due to that. And then salinity. You can see here that salinity corrosion rate goes up to about 3.5% salinity, which is the typical salinity in seawater, which you would then use if you are using one of your cargo holds for ballast. Typical cargo hold coating failure modes. Discoloration staining, as already mentioned, it's like when you have carried a coal and it gets baked into the coating, and it's difficult to clean away. And like Mark already said, I mean, if you don't clean and you're taking another cold cargo, it gets even more baked in because of the high temperature also that potentially the cold cargo has when you pick it up. You have scratches and gouges to the coating, which comes from impact and abrasion from cargoes that you are carrying, but also when you are loading and offloading from grabs, bobcats, excavators, etc. Corrosion, of course, is a big issue due to humidity in cargoes or seawater from cleaning or going on ballast, as I already mentioned. Blistering, acidic active cargoes could create blistering in your coating. You can have cracking if you are using then a coating that doesn't have the sufficient flexibility upon impact. You can have delamination, of course. It could be surface contamination from dry spray when you are applying it, a new build or maintenance, or it could be when you are using some kind of cosmetic coating. And loss of adhesion, typically from insufficient surface pretreatment or lack of surface tolerance of the cargo hold coating that you are using. And then softness due to application of high dry film thicknesses or using coating with low TG, glass transition temperature. That means the coating is not hard enough to carry warm cargoes. If I try to sum or class the different failures that we have observed in various cases that we've been looking at, we're doing inspections and failure investigations and failure analysis. We will class them into two. One is poor workmanship in dry dock or shipyard, and the other one is from failures from commercial operations. The typical failures we see is with regards to workmanship is over thickness that leads to cargo gauging damages, and we do recognize that actually applying the correct dry film thickness, ideally, typically a coating cargo hold coating system is a 2-coat system. 2 times 125 micron is a typical specification, but it is difficult to reach exactly those DFTs, in particular in structures that are complicated and so on. So that can happen quite often. Solvent retention could be, for instance, when you are closing the hatch too early after refurbishing or not respecting overcoating intervals if it's a 2-coat system. Detachment of cosmetic coatings I already mentioned, leading then to cargo contamination. It could be grit from surface pretreatment, actually using the inappropriate coating for your purpose and your operation conditions, or poor surface protection. Poor surface preparation. From commercial operations, we see failures like failures from early loading of hard angular cargoes like coal, carrying sulfur, and the effectiveness of various lime wash or slip coat types, delamination due to insufficient cleaning before you do spot repairs, or it could be the way you are loading, like for instance spinning this distribution or coke breeze, making a lot of pinpoint damages and rust staining in the bulkheads. And here I'm going to show you from photos from some cases. The first one is cosmetic coating at a new building. As I already mentioned, the coating is typically a 2-coat system, and here you can see on the upper left-hand side here, you have the gray coating, which is 150 microns. The second coat is 299 microns, so you have overcoated here the second coat, but then you see on the top there's about 70 microns of additional coating on top of that, which is then this cosmetic coating that in this case was a yard or who has applied. And you see here that this would delaminate, carrying either because it wasn't fit for the job, it doesn't have good enough adhesion, and you will see how it looks like in the bulkhead after peeling off. Mechanical damages has already also been managed when you have what you call compaction of cargoes during voyage. You typically get this gouging damages, or what we call Christmas tree damages. When you load or offload, you can get these scratches to the cargo hold coating, and particularly these are hard angular cargoes that make this type of damages. Coating delamination. This is delamination due to poor surface cleaning, workmanship prior to onboard spot repairs, and then you will have peeled off coatings, scraping here, as you can see. And then corrosion from active cargoes. I mentioned that. I mean, if you are carrying chemically active cargoes like sulfur or coal, they can create premature corrosion damages to the cargo hold coating. On the left-hand side here, they've been using lime wash applied to the tank you can see here, but also you see the hopper plating in the background. So the whole cargo hold applied with that. But what you do see is that the lime wash is not opaque all over. So that means it's not been applied in the correct thickness, and therefore you will have corrosion due to when you are loading the sulfur. It's not protecting enough. And on the right hand side here, you have been cargo settlement and humidity in the coal after carrying coal, and you will have these type of rust damages on the corrugated bulkhead. And the last one here example is corrosion from cargo loading. I managed this spinning disc loading of coke breeze, where you can see here on the right hand side where you get these pinpoint damages from the coke breeze penetrating the coating and making damages. And then the overview picture on the left hand side is showing significant rust staining from all these pinpoint damages into the corrugated bulkhead. So, as a conclusion, what kind of cargo hold coating damages do you typically have? You have what I already mentioned is the impact and abrasion damages from cargo loading and offloading. You have cargo goaching damages, which I also mentioned, from cargo compaction of hard angular combined with also and really significantly higher also if you have high DFTs of the coating. You have the cargo staining when you are carrying warm angular cargoes with low TG and insufficient hardness. You have mechanical damages, as I mentioned. You have delamination, like cosmetic coatings that can then create contaminating the subsequent cargo that is carried. You have cleaning damages, as mentioned also, if you use very aggressive alkaline cleaners or acidic cleaners in the cargo hold and not removing them completely after cleaning. And you can have burning damages from cargo, self-ignition or self-heating cargoes. So keeping in mind the exposure climate and the operational conditions in a bulk carrier, will cargo hold coatings protect the cargo against all damages and corrosion? Well, the simple answer there is no. However, as already pointed out by Sam from Jotun, a high quality cargo hold coating can delay the onset of significant degree of corrosion in the cargo hold, and by that extend the time between the need for major refurbishments. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Michael, very much. Well, that's the end of our presentations. As you can see on your screen, if you want to ask any questions, you can type them into the Q&A box, or you can click on raise your hand to ask a question live. Before we start with the questions, I've got a couple of questions. I'll ask the one to Sam first of Jotun. In past years, there's always been a problem with the first coating, which is at new building stage, obviously. A lot of the times it's decided, the coating is decided by the shipyard and not the ship owner, because the shipyard is trying to cut down the cost of producing the ship in the first place.
Yep.
Have you found recently, with the amount of money that you can obviously save if you get your coatings correct, that the ship owner has got far, far more impact on that original decision made when the ship is at new building stage?
Yeah, indeed. Thanks for the question, Alan. So typically what we see in the new building process is that there is an outline specification drawn up by the shipyard. And as you say, that tends to be on the economical end of the coating spectrum. So they would tend to put a universal epoxy in the cargo holds. And there's a great benefit to the shipyard for that, because they would then be using the same coating in the cargo holds as they would be using on the decks, in the ballast tanks, etc., as the first coat. So from an operational point of view, that gives them great benefits and is a real driver for them. So Jotun as a supplier, we tend to get involved with our clients at an early stage in the new building process to discuss with them the pros and cons of the different coating types. And we would encourage them based on the pictures and the return on investment that we've shown today to consider upgrading these coatings to specialist cargo hold coatings. I'd say it's a reasonably straightforward process. That there is quite often reluctance from the shipyards to change the outline specification, and often there are extra costs, but we can work that into our return of investment calculations and show the benefit of that. So we're more than happy to work together with clients, owners, operators, and with the shipyards to show them the best way forward in terms of making those changes to the specifications and the inherent benefits that they can have.
Okay, thanks, Sam. I forgot to mention that we've got 2 additional Jotun people on our panel here who can answer questions. John Salhus in Norway and Alexei, you're going to laugh at my pronunciation, Alexei Berdosenko. Is that any good?
Yeah, that's pretty close.
Okay, all right. Sam, there's been a question in from Paul Bartlett, who I know very well as a fellow journalist. It says on the ROL calculation, I think you said that for an extra $30,000 upfront investment, you could potentially save time between cargoes, extend the maintenance interval, as well as other benefits. This is equivalent, let's say, to 2 days hire over up to 10 years, so why would anyone choose not to have the top of the range cargo hold coating?
And I immediately like Paul after that question. We agree. Why wouldn't anybody choose to upgrade to the top of the range coating? I mean, I've answered the question in writing, and I'll answer it verbally as well. Quite often it's down to budgets, you know, and budgets can be written quite a long time in advance and then be quite tricky to change. Superintendents often, I mean, they're obviously targeted not to go over their budget. So we would encourage ship owners, operators to discuss well in advance of setting budgets with Jotun to make sure that those budgets can stretch to the higher end specialized cargo hold coating. So budget can be a factor and can be a barrier to investing in these products, but equally the vessel future plans, you know, quite often bulk carriers are owned by asset players where investments might not be encouraged if there's a short-term plan for the vessel. They're often on spot market. I mean, I think the trade for bulk carriers is more often spot market than it is on time charters, which you might see for tankers or particularly LNG vessels. So not having that clarity of what the future holds in terms of what cargoes they might have or what potential for earning they might have can also impact that decision whether to invest or not to.
Okay, I've got a question for Mark. You mentioned the cleaning of cargoes after each individual cargo. Now, do you do that when the cargo is the same?
Yes, exactly, and that is important because we saw that also in Michael's presentations, and that if you have coal as a cargo and you load the next cargo is also coal, but then the third cargo may be a clean cargo, then you actually end up in already 2 times coal cargo stains, and that are really baking into the coating, and then you will face difficulties in cleaning the coal cargo stains before loading the grain cargo, for instance.
Okay, we've also got an anonymous attendee who asked the question, what type of equipment is Wilhelmsen offering for cargo hold cleaning?
Thanks. Yes, there's actually basically, we have a broad range of equipment for cargo cleaning, but you can separate it in 2 sides. One is actually equipment to apply the chemicals, and that's quite important because it's not enough to having a hose and a copper pipe to apply the chemicals. You need actually to spray in quite some distance the chemicals to reach the high areas, but also you should enable foaming or foam production on the chemicals so it can soak for a longer time on the surface. That is one, and then you also need to wash it off with the right equipment. And in addition, if you do not succeed because you have, for instance, loaded coal for several cargo voyages, then you may need actually a high pressure cleaning. And that is something that we also supply, is a high pressure cleaner jet that can have up to 500 bar, but also then long lance equipment, like we call it the anaconda lance, to reach elevated areas inside the cargo holds.
Okay, there's another anonymous attendee, and he's asking Mark, Unitor Barrier and Unitor Cargo Clean, HD, are they friendly to the environment?
Yeah, both products are actually classified as not being harmful to the marine environment. So per MARPOL Annex 5 that I shared also in the presentation, they can be discharged along with the wash water.
So they're completely okay to use in any environment?
Yes, they are not harmful to the marine environment, exactly.
Okay. Another question from Philippos Mitromaris. He didn't put which company it was. The question is there any margin for Cargo Clean HD to become even more effective in the near future?
This is I'm not sure. I mean, there may be more details behind that question. I'm not having the background now, because we see, and also what the feedback we get, Cargo Clean HD is already highly effective for cargo cleaning. So it depends now actually for this particular question or experience the person had, what dilution rate they have been using Cargo Clean HD, but also how did they apply the chemicals inside the hold, and what stains needed to be cleaned off, and also how was the condition of the cargo hold before they commenced the cleaning or loading of the cargo that they had discharged.
Okay, we've had another question in from Stratis Alisafakis. Apart from the painted cargo hold verticals for bulk carrier vessels over 10 years old that load grain or coal cargoes, often the unpainted tank tops can be a real headache for the crew. Are there any specific coatings or methods of cleaning that can help seal and or slow the rust or rust flaking? He goes on to say, often after crew clean, the rust develops quickly thereafter, often when waiting to load. Crew need to go back to the areas. I think, Sam, could you or one of the representatives of Jotun answer this question first and then push it on to Mark?
Sure, yeah. Alexei, I don't know if you want to say anything from, Alexei is working in our lab on development of coatings. So I don't know if there's anything you want to say for that, but from our point of view, the unpainted tank tops, yeah, I can understand that they can be a real headache for the crew, and that they do develop the rust quite quickly. You could paint them with the Jotun 690S at the high level pure epoxy coating. The challenge is, I believe, that you know, the tank tops are subject to so much abrasion damage from the discharging operations that there's not much of a coating that can stand up to that kind of a challenge. Now we don't sort of shy away from a challenge, and certainly the top of the range pure epoxy products would give you the best possible result on that. But I think, as Michael alluded to, there's no coating that can really stand up to everything that has been thrown at them when it comes to all of the operations that go ahead. So yeah, we would recommend to try the pure epoxy and see how that fares compared to the bare steel. There's probably a return on investment or a business impact that you can calculate to that as to how long it would last, and how long that would give you the protection and the relief from those challenges. But we believe that over a 10-year period, that coating probably wouldn't last the whole time.
Alexei, do you have anything to add to that?
Oh, I can say that I do agree about that. That probably on that part, the premium cargo hold coating that we're gonna use will suffice the best, because this area is quite challenging. So it should be protected in a way better.
Okay, is there any answer from you, Mark?
Yeah, indeed, for the tank tops, actually, we have a product, for instance, like Metal Bright HD that can be used to slow the rusting on it, but it will never stop the rusting as such, because it will slow it at least. And what we can also have is then like Cargo Barrier HD as a temporary barrier between the cargo and the tank top.
Okay.
Could I just add one more, Alan, there? I mean, Sam
Yeah.
mentioned that you get the damages in the tank top from offloading, but actually you get even more damages in the tank top from loading. I mean, when you're having a grab and letting down aggregates or bauxite or iron ore or whatever, that's where you get the real damages. And for that reason, tank tops are normally not coated, and it's you are designing for corrosion allowance with the steel in the tank top for that purpose. So of course, cleaning that and taking away the rust is a hassle, but I don't think there is any coating out there that will actually give full protection of tank tops, not with the mechanical impact that you will have from in particular loading, and then also from handling and offloading.
Okay, Michael, I've got a question. Safinah seems to get involved in the process of the breakdown of coatings and what have you when it actually happens. Does Safinah, and there is a question from an anonymous attendee, he says, Safinah, you said that design is one of the main causes of failure. Does Safinah get involved at the design stage? And I would carry that on from me. Do you offer any sort of consultancy analysis and what have you to the ship owner before new building stage, during new building stage, and also during the operation of the ship?
Yes, I could say both yes and no. In some cases, yes, we are maybe not so much involved in new building cases, but from time to time we have conversion projects and so on, where we actually do go through the total coating specification and also giving work scope documents on how to do surface preparation and application of the coating. And there, of course, we're also talking about design, rounding of edges and corners, etc., to have the right design to avoid corrosion. I mean, typically in ballast tanks, you have a lot of damages on edges and corners because of the way the structure looks like, if this is not done correctly.
Okay, this one would be for the cleaning, Mark again from Wilhelmsen. It's coming from Alex Karalis. And he asked a question, would you see the use of biochemicals being produced for cargo hold cleaning in the future? Do you see manufacturing plants moving in such a direction?
Yeah, thanks for this question. It actually depends on also what is the definition of a biochemical. That is something that needs to be elaborated further on, but definitely I can assure that we are constantly actually looking into improving our chemical range, and and also looking into more biochemicals as such, but it depends then of course on the definition. But yes, we are constantly looking into improvements, and if there's any way we can see in changing our chemicals, making it more adapted, then we will definitely go forward for it.
Okay, we've got a question in from Alok Tripathi, which I think can be passed to one of our friends at Jotun. He asks, what specification needs to be followed for cargo hold coatings? Is there any standard which includes DFT, surface preparation, and covers inspection, in brackets warranty, etc.? I think that can be answered by one of the people from Jotun.
Jon, would you like to take that as our technical manager for West Europe?
Yeah, yes, we can. And we normally do follow up with coating advisors during surface preparation, including steel preparation, but we are advisors, so it's hard for us to demand anything or something, but we can advise strongly. We do issue guarantees on our products when done according to the TDS, technical data sheets and application guides that we provide. But no coating will be better than the surface it's applied on. So it doesn't really matter if you apply gold, as long as you don't do the proper surface preparation before you apply that gold. So,
John, if
When
I
you-
may elaborate, sorry, Alan.
No, go on, go on.
I'm just going to say that, I mean, the question refers to standard DFTs as well. So a typical cargo hold application might be 2 by 125 microns dry film thickness. John's mentioned the service preparation and covers inspection and warranty. And warranties quite often, we can offer warranties for 5 years or as required according to the demands of the coating and the operation. But quite often what we do is we would agree a specific area of the cargo hold, which we monitor very closely in terms of the preparation and the application. And look at the quality of the coating in that area, and that would become what we call a reference area, and then that would be what we'd refer to in the guarantee or the warranty.
Okay, we've had another question in. He's for an anonymous attendee, but he says, "Hi, Michael." So he's obviously knows Michael. So this one's obviously predicted at him. Over the years of your knowledge, have you seen significant steel degradation within the critical areas of the holds, i.e. lower hopper, heap areas, etc., depending upon the types of coatings, low end to high end?
Okay, yeah, well, yes, I have. I mean, if you are thinking about, I mean, first of all, the lower hopper, of course, is the area where you will have most damages in the coating, also from mechanical. I mean, bobcats and grabs and whatever when you are offloading cargoes. But if you're thinking about damages due to loading of hard angular cargoes like aggregates, bauxite, iron ore, and so on falling, if you are using a low-end type of coating, of course, you can have much more mechanical damages due to that compared to a high-end coating that has higher abrasion and impact resistance. You will also, during voyage, if you're thinking about carrying coal, for instance, if you get humidity, as I already mentioned, if you get humidity into the coating, you will have then formation of sulfuric acid in the lower part of the cargo hold, and typically the lower part of the hopper will get this type of more significant damages if you're then using a low-end type of coating that doesn't have the chemical resistance to support that, or the glass transition temperature, the temperature resistance to be able to support this type of temperature from the in the cargo hold. You also have to remember that bulk carriers have double hulls, so the moment you are actually closing the hatch cover, it's almost like a thermos. It does keep the heat, in particular in warm cargoes, for a very long period. So therefore, low-end coatings that has low temperature resistance will have far more damages. With regards to significant steel degradation, yes, I mean a lot of the steel replacement on the lower hopper areas and so on is maybe more from mechanical impacts from loading and from offloading than actually the coating damages during use.
Chris Jones has left a note saying that he would like to answer that question as well. Is that right? No, maybe not. So I've got, again, an anonymous attendee. The question is for Wilhelmsen. How is it best to ensure that crews are familiarized with chemicals and equipment and ensuring best cleaning practice occurs?
Hey, thanks, Alan. Yes, speaking as being a sailor myself, or sailed for some time, it is important that we need to think of as the crew gets the chemicals or equipment, because if we provide them from port to port different equipment and different chemicals, it's very hard for them to get to know them and know actually how they can use it properly. So first of all, it's important to standardize the chemicals and equipment that is used on board, so the crew gets to know it and can actually learn on the go and how they best use these kind of equipment and chemicals. But also what is important is the possibility to train them either on board with, for instance, now service engineers that can help them and support them, or even to get more documentation or manuals or instructions that are easy to follow and quickly to understand, because we also need to keep in mind that cargo cleaning is not the main job of a seaman. And that is very important actually always to remember, because they also have to navigate and sail a vessel. And that's why we need to make it as easy as possible for them to make use of the right equipment and chemicals.
Okay, the next, we've got 3 more questions, or 2 questions from George Kreitsis and an anonymous attendee, both to do with surface preparation. It says, surface preparation, comparison of sandblasting versus water blasting, pros and cons. From the anonymous man, what's the recommended surface prep that should be done prior to the coating? And also, what can we get away with as a minimum? Now, I'd like to start that with one of the Jotun people. Then I'll move on to Mark, because surface preparation is part of his remit, and then also go on to Michael afterwards from Safinah, and ask him what his opinion is. So can we start with one of the Jotun people?
Yeah, I guess that's on me. And what we can get away with, that depends how much you want to have back on your investment. The lower surface prep you have, the lesser result you will get in the end. So SR2.5 sandblasting is of course the optimal surface preparation for any cargo hold coating. And if you don't, or going for instance, Jotun 690, we can accept SR2 as a minimum, and you will probably get a result with even lower surface preparation, but I wouldn't really recommend that, because yeah, loss of investment over time will give that results. With UHP, ultra high pressure water jetting, it is still seen as an alternative to sandblasting, meaning the business in general see SR2.5 for sandblasting as the best result. But as long as you have a good surface profile from earlier sandblasting or shot blasting in the steel plant, you will have the needed profile on the steel. So you will still get a good result with ultra high pressure water jetting. But not all coatings can take that, so you might have to go into hybrid systems with surface tolerant epoxies, or for instance Jotun 630. So if you want to have the optimal result, I would say sandblasting to SR2.5 will give the best results, and over time.
Mark, do you want to comment on this?
Yeah, I can, because it depends on a bit where the vessel is. I mean, in a shipyard, it's more easy to reach actually as a 2.5 or even above with sandblasting or water jetting or water blasting. But for the crew now, if the vessel is in operation, it's difficult also to reach the areas where they need to do the touch-up of the paint. And then from a realistic point of view, what they have is either they have manual air tools or something for using on the surface preparation, or that is something that we have is, for instance, a 500 bar high pressure cleaner that can be combined actually with sandblasting as an add-on. So it adds the sand together with the 500 bar water jet. And that is, from a practical point of view, one of the, what we've learned also, one of the most easiest or best solution for the crew going ahead in order to prepare the surface properly.
Michael, can you add anything to this?
Well, I think from a surface profile point of view, of course, blast cleaning is preferable than water jetting. Water jetting, of course, can remove more of the salts. When you are blast cleaning, of course, you will have to also then do proper check of soluble salts, even if you have before you coating the substrate. And in general, I think we would normally recommend to have blast cleaning SA 2.5 as the best way if you're doing total refurbishment. Of course, for smaller repairs and so on, water jetting should could be acceptable. And then it's very important then to choose the right coating that can support this type of surface preparation.
Okay, we've got another question in from an anonymous source, and I think Jotun is most probably the best person, or one of the Jotun people is the best person to answer this. He said, would you recommend to split the types of coatings, high resistance impact coatings in the critical areas, and then less on the upper bulkheads, etc.?
I could take that one, and the answer is that can be an option indeed. If the coating is not going to be exposed to the high impact damages and the challenges in those specific areas, then there's no reason to invest all that money in putting that coating in that area. So quite often, yes, we do see split schemes. I guess the only negative side to that is the inherent complexity when it comes to the application, and there may be some resistance from the yards in terms of that process. It's far easier for them to use one paint and carry on that application throughout the full area than it would be to switch and to change a specific point. But yeah, that is indeed an option. In fact, Alan, if you don't mind me saying so, there's another question that's on.
Yeah, I've just spotted
on a similar.
That.
Yeah, on a similar vein, which is around the fact that vessels do tend to use different coatings in the lower section of the holds and more basic, low cost in the elevated areas.
Okay, Sam, let me just ask that question so that all our attendees get to hear it. It says, it's again from an anonymous source, vessels tend to use different coatings in the lower section of the cargo holds and a more basic, low cost in the elevated areas of the bulkheads. How much does this affect staining in elevated areas from either coal or pet coke?
Well, I'll try and direct that question to Alexei, who's working in the labs and looking somewhat at staining. But obviously, the different types of coating that you do use have a different cleanability, so it will have some implication. Alexei, I don't know if you want to elaborate on that a little.
Yeah, I might try. So basically, in the lab, actually, we're trying to assess staining. Staining can be quite a complicated thing to measure because actually there is no way to measure it in a way that there is no standard that you can use for measuring it. But we actually do think that it really depends what you're measuring and where you're measuring. So if it's below parts of the cargo hold and if it's elevated areas, there should be difference in staining just because of the pressure that cargo will manage to make on the coating surface. And that pressure would be higher, of course, on the lower area of the cargo hold and not so important on the elevated areas. The top, the more you go up, the less important that will be. At least we made it on the lab scale and we studied and we see that the pressure that goes on the cargo is important. So it might work that there'll be less demand on washability and stainability on elevated areas.
Okay, I add a little comment to that.
Yes.
It's also important to choose the right coating for the underside of the hatch cover because you will also have condensation and high temperature exposure for that part. So then if you are choosing the low end type of coating for the underside of the hatch cover, you might have far more corrosion damages, blistering, etc.
There is a question further down, and it's a follow-up question again from anonymous. How come stains most often occur in the elevated areas? maybe Michael should start this off, and maybe we'll go on to one of the Jotun people.
Well, relatively simple answer to that question. Heat is going up, so of course the higher areas in the cargo hold will have maybe more heated exposure, and therefore you will get more stains for that area. The other one is, of course, that it's more difficult to reach for cleaning. So therefore it might be over time baked into the coating for that purpose. And it's baked into the first top microns of the coating. It's not going deep into, but it is giving this bad staining visual aspect.
Okay, somebody from the Jotun team?
Yeah, it is correct, as Michael is saying. It's about accessibility for cleaning. Combined with the temperatures, so you get stains sitting in the top surface of the coating. So if you abrade it or scrape it away, yes, you will most likely remove it, but it is to get up there to do that. That's one of the big challenges.
Okay, we've got another question from an anonymous source. I think, Michael, if you could start the answer to this, and then we'll push it on to Mark at Wilhelmsen and then on to Sam afterwards. The question is, how are future regulations going to affect the performance of coatings and cleaning chemicals?
Well, I think if we look into the looking glass, I don't think I mean cargo holds is a revenue earning space on a ship, and similar to what we have had for PSPC for cargo oil tanks and also for ballast tanks. I would foresee that at some point of time you will have an IMO PSPC regulation also for choice of coatings and regulating this in cargo holds.
Can we ask the Jotun team? I mean, are you aware of any new regulations coming in, and are you doing anything about it?
Yeah,
sorry, I was just going to say, I mean, when it comes to regulations on coatings, the main areas that we see regulations coming in, and Alex, John, please feel free to correct me here, are typically in terms of the volatile organic content of the coating, so the amount of VOCs in the coatings. Also isocyanates, which are more prevalent in polyurethane coatings, and then of course biocides, which is more towards the anti-fouling type products. So as you probably many of you know, some years back tributyl tin was banned in anti-foulings, and actually anti-fouling technology took a huge drop off a cliff, and many coating companies have been trying to work hard to get coatings back to the kind of performance that the TBT coatings had. We don't see such significant changes coming in terms of the restrictions on coatings in future that should affect cargo hold coatings. But yes, we are always working towards those new regulations, such as the VOC limitations, etc. You agree, Alexei?
Yeah, this is usually the mainstream goal, to work on VOC, because they always become more and more, let's say, demanding on that. So we always keep that in mind.
Okay, Mark, do you want to comment on that at all about future regulations?
Yeah, with regards to regulation on the cleaning chemicals, it's something that we like to see, and it may be also drifting in that direction. Is you can, for tank cleaning, for instance, we have IMO approved cleaning products, and for cargo cleaning that is not the case. It's more a self-declaration of the manufacturers, and then it's on the users on board. Actually, it's their responsibility to check if these products are harmful or not harmful, and if there would be a better regulation on the cleaning chemicals as such, which are approved for cargo cleaning or not, that could be also some regulation going forward.
Okay, we've got another question in from Paul Bartlett, especially for you, Mark. Does Wilhelmsen have any plans to use new digital technologies such as remote advice, virtual reality, augmented reality in crew training procedures?
Yes, actually we do, and that is something that we see there is also a need on, especially on training, and that is something that we are exploring as we speak, and need to find out what would be the best way in order to give such technology or enable such technology also for the crews on board to train themselves before actually commencing the cleaning operation.
Okay. There's a question further down, Mark, which you could most probably take. Is there any experience with CH cleaning robots? If so, what do they think about the results they produce? Is the surface clean enough, in brackets he's put hospital clean, to accept, for example, grain cargoes after having carried coal?
Yeah, it's absolutely an interesting technology. These kind of cleaning ROVs that actually bring a high pressure nozzle that nowadays we have a long lance for it, but then you have a remote operated vehicle that can go actually to the elevated areas in order to put the high pressure jet onto the surface. So definitely there is it is a solution going forward, but we need to see also that it can reach all the areas and access the areas, because there's always frames or stringers will be difficult to reach on the bulkheads.
Okay, you've mentioned, a couple of the panelists have mentioned sandblasting. Now we've got a question in from Ionis Kyrianos. It says last year, presumably 2020, sandblasting was banned in Chinese shipyards. So what will be the alternative solution? Is it water jetting? And at what pressure? Is it 2000 bar?
UHP is defined as above 2,100 bars, and that is what will give the best results. And that's mainly the alternative they issue, or they offer in China, sorry. Of course, you can go lower under pressure, but that will also reflect on the surface treatment and the good lifetime of the system. So it is possible, but if you want to have a high-end product, it is a challenge to expect the same from UHP as from sandblasting.
And John,
Okay.
if you don't mind me adding in there, the main issue there is the flash rusting afterwards, right? So as you mentioned before, if you've got a good profile in the steel from the steel shop from new building, then the UHP will get you back to that profile, which is great for the keying of the coating. The challenge is more procedural in terms of the flash rusting, because of the use of water, and in countries like China, where you have high temperature, high humidity, that can lead to very fast flash rusting, to a point where there's a powdery surface which putting coatings on top of, they just can't adhere well enough. So that's the challenge there.
Can I ask a question here? Where countries have got quite high environmental regulations, sandblasting has already been replaced by high pressure water blasting. China is the main one that's been changed recently. How long will it be before sandblasting is absolutely eradicated?
It's a very good question. And as you say, several countries, even in Europe, have banned sandblasting. That's not entirely correct, because even China do allow sandblasting or blast cleaning, as long as you're able to do it in a confined space, like for instance a cargo hold. They can allow it if you close the hatches and have good ventilation, and then dispose the sand in a proper manner afterwards. And the same goes for instance, Netherlands, that has been very strict on this for years and years. But we do actually expect it to come at some point, but I don't have a clue when.
Okay, I don't think you're alone with that, John, either.
No.
I could maybe add one thing here, that actually blast cleaning for maintenance offshore in the Norwegian oil sector was banned 25 years ago. So and it went up to high pressure water jetting after that. So that's existed for a long time. So it doesn't necessarily mean that all other countries will follow right after. It's taken 25 years before China came, so it could also take another 25 years before there's an international ban on that.
Alan, if you wouldn't mind me just clarifying at one point, we talked about the flash rusting that comes after hydroblasting, and there are different grades of flash rusting. There's light, medium, and heavy, and I don't think there's any coating out there that you would be happy to put onto a heavily flash rusted surface, but there are coating types that have much better surface preparation that can then adhere in the cases of light and medium flash rusting. So we do have very good solutions for these cases, but it is just an extra added level of complexity versus sandblasting.
Okay, the next question comes in. Oh, sorry, John, go ahead.
Yeah, just back to sandblasting and banding and what Michael says. And hydroblasting or ultra high pressure water jetting is not the only alternative to the surface treatment. There are various methods using dry ice, sponge. There is various of methods in order to give a clean surface. One of the bigger challenge is actually the roughness of the steel.
Okay, that's good. We've had a question in from Christos Lazaridis. He says cargo hold preparation most of the time takes place at sea. Therefore, sea and weather conditions can in some cases not be favorable for proper preparation. What is the best solution for cleaning, especially in the higher parts of the hold? Last but not least, what is the cost of cleaning equipment apart from chemicals, and can it be rented or can it be given on a renting base? I think Mark can deal with this one.
Yes, thanks, Alan. Yeah, well, first of all, I think if the weather condition doesn't allow a safe cleaning operation, then the crew shouldn't be engaged in cleaning the hose. That is something that everyone needs to understand at first, and also the ship owners and operators and so on. That is something that is very important. We should never jeopardize safety. But if the weather condition allows it, then it is important to get the chemical as high as you can, and that is where you need, dependent on the equipment what you use. It's very often the deck on air. You need to have enough air pressure. You need to have enough fresh water supply and also water pressure. That is important in order to reach the high areas. And the second part of the question was with regards to renting out such equipment. That is something that we are exploring, but for now we don't have equipment for rent. But we are looking into it if that is a possibility. The difficulty is actually that that you need to maintain the equipment also properly, and that is something that is important to keep an eye on. And if you rent it out, then it's something that we need to consider.
I think when people are talking about renting equipment, there is in the back of my mind that points to the fact they don't use it that often, so that they want it on a renting basis, which means that in practical terms, they're not cleaning the hold after each cargo. Is that what you read into it, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, naturally depends what type of bulk carrier now we are talking about, because the ultra large ones, they usually only have one or two types of cargos. But if it's a Panamax, for instance, that can change the cargo quite often, and then actually it is needful having the right equipment on board, and then it's standing by, and you have it as soon as the next cargo is getting fixed, you have it on board, and you don't need to get it sourced in the ports you call.
Okay, there's another question from an anonymous source, and this is the same subject, so I'll stick with Mark. It says, on a vessel that is sailing, what is the limit in regard to available electricity to supply a ultra pressure cleaner, 2000 bar and above?
Sorry, Alan, I cannot answer on that one, because I'm not familiar with ultra high pressure cleaning above 2000 bar.
Okay, can anybody help with that one?
They are basically huge compressors running on diesel normally, because they would probably require quite a bit of electricity.
So they will be separate from the normal electric supply on a ship from the
Yes.
main engine or the electric generators, yeah?
Yes, yes.
So I think the question revolves around surface preparation rather than cleaning for onboard maintenance, John.
Yeah, yeah, because it was hydroblasting, wasn't it? The question.
Yes.
Yeah. So as I said, they are big compressors running on their own without any support from the ship. They might need some light electricity.
So for onboard maintenance, we'd recommend the use of hand tools.
Yes.
Yes, hand tools to prepare the surface for
There's
small areas at least.
There was another question in from, and it suddenly disappeared off my chat box. Let me see if I can find it. No, it's not there. Let me just. Let me just see if I can find it.
Alan, there's one question about if you could use zinc silicates on tank tops. Maybe I can comment on that one.
That was the question that I was looking for.
Maybe I could start the comment on that one. I would say no, for two reasons. One, zinc silicates has a limited pH range. So if you're outside of the normal pH range of 6 to 9, which for zinc silicates, the zinc is degraded very fast. And if you are carrying a cold cargo and you get humidity, you will have sulfuric acid in there, and of course the coating will be degraded. Secondly, you have a lot of corrosion, you have a lot of scale, whatever in the tank top, and actually getting down to the right surface profile to get good adhesion with zinc silicate is also extremely difficult. So those are my main reasons why I would say no.
Okay, somebody's come back with what we were talking about, how much it takes to supply electricity, and the anonymous attendee who asked the original question says we start a second diesel generator. So is that normal practice?
Again, the compressors for hydroblasting are separate units brought on board, so they don't normally require or run on electricity. It's normally running on diesel, like any air compressor or transportable. And to operate with 2,100 bars and above is not really recommended unless you are trained to do so, because you can cut steel below 1,000 bars if you use aggregates. So there is a high degree of HSE risks involved in using this equipment, so it should only be used by trained personnel. So I would rather suggest they take on board riding crew or something like that if they want to go ahead with a major operation that are trained to operate this equipment.
Okay, there was a question there earlier on with how much does it take a remote controlled vehicle to clean a hold on a Panamax sized bulk carrier? I think Mark is best to answer this if you can.
Yeah, I think it also will depend on several factors. So it's very difficult to comment on a time frame now for a hold for such a device. I cannot give any answer to that.
Okay, there's another. It's not a question, but it's more of a statement from an anonymous attendee. He says cutting edge technology may bring something miraculous, but the cost must always go along with the profit margins made by the dry cargoes. Otherwise, it is a useless operation.
Yeah, I think that's a fair summary.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, and the last one we've got here at the moment is to do with blasting again. The difference between sandblasting and high water. the anonymous man says copper slag is used from time to time. How does this affect the preparation of surfaces with regards to the compatibility to the paint residues?
If it's serious supplier of the copper slag, that's normally not an issue as such, as long as it's approved according to the relevant standards they should apply to.
Is it more expensive to use copper slag than water jetting, or cheaper?
That will, by the look of it, it is cheaper. But if you count all of the operations in, like disposal, for instance, instead of having just the paint as remains after the operation with hydroblasting, if you use grit or abrasive sandblasting, you will have a few tons of sand. It requires something like 40 or 30 to 50 kilograms per square meter cleaned, depending, and it can go even higher. So if you have a few thousand square meters, there will be a lot of sand to dispose afterwards, and also to cover in everything, ventilation, and the hazard of dust in machinery and equipment. So all in all, hydroblasting is probably cheaper than abrasive sandblasting.
I can ask a question here. With Jotun and with Wilhelmsen, we'll start with Jotun. Do you offer a monitoring service for your coatings? When they go on at new build stage, you obviously have some sort of application supervision there. But during the lifetime of the vessel, do you offer a monitoring service either by remote or by going along and seeing and testing and what have you of the coating? Do you offer a monitoring service to the customer?
Yes, Alan, we do, and there's a couple of ways that we do so. We have a solution called our sea stock management solution, by which we try to help out ship owners and operators in terms of the management of the onboard maintenance when it comes to paint. And in that respect, we can offer for a fixed lump sum, we can offer to do regular inspections of the vessels, and to train crew, and to have an ongoing process of monitoring the fabric maintenance of the vessel, making recommendations as to what treatment needs to be done in order to get the best out of the coatings and to extend the asset lifetime as long as possible. Outside of cargo hold coatings, we've recently also launched our Hull Keeper program, where we can offer to maintain to give ROV inspections of the underwater area of the ship as well. You can find out more information about that online, but it's not as relevant here for our cargo holds discussion.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you don't mind, can I add on, due to COVID, physical presence of our coating advisors have been a challenge. So we're also looking into various supporting tools like the Google Glasses or something like that, where I'm thinking that maybe the crew sometime in the future could do the inspection and we just monitor via the computer or something like that.
Okay, Mark, do you want to add anything from Wilhelmsen's point of view? Do you help the ship owners by regularly monitoring the state of the coating?
No, it's not the coating that we supply, so we don't monitor the coating as such. But what we do is actually supporting the crew in checking the condition of the hold and assessing actually the right cleaning, what products they should use to achieve the cleaning results. And then we have also possibilities to have a port service engineers on board and to check together with the crew.
Okay, there's a comment from an anonymous source. He says, isn't often the operators or owners' expectations to surface preparations and cleaning the hold in no time totally unrealistic? Mark, maybe. Do you often get the ship owner expecting you to clean it in very, very, very short time periods?
That is, yeah, I mean, that depends all on the situation, on the particular situation of the vessel. If when the next cargo is fixed, how much time is in between, how was the weather condition before, and then it may get constrained in time. And then, of course, it is not possible cleaning a full Panamax vessel from a dirty to a clean cargo in just one day or something. But everything depends on many factors. So it's difficult to say what is realistic, what is unrealistic, as a bold statement.
Okay, we've got no more questions, so I think that comes to the end of the webinar. I've got a couple of housekeeping things. We have got a poll available for all the attendees to look at, which I think has just come up on your screen. If you would like to fill that in and submit it to us, that will give us quite a good idea of what you thought of the webinar and what you think of the whole industry of coatings and cleaning and everything else sorted out with that. The second thing is, so if you could do the poll, that would be most good for us. The second thing is that don't forget, we've made a recording of this webinar and it will be sent out over the next couple of days to you all. If you have any more questions that you want to ask, obviously you can carry on asking them direct to the people at Jotun, Wilhelmsen or Safinah, or even come to me and I will ask them to do it on from you. But I'd like to thank, obviously, Sam, Mark, Michael, John and Alexei for being participants. I apologize again of the Marin situation, but it was basically out of our control. And I would like to thank all the attendees as well. I think this has been a very, very interesting webinar, and people, I hope, have got some more information out of it than they had before it started. So, I mean, let's keep the conversation going. You've got the contacts there. You can always use me as a intermediate, but I'd like to thank everybody involved in this and look forward to the next time. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.